8.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Talking politics with Russell Norman.
Co-leader of the Greens this morning, Russell Norman. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Wammo.
Did you get much of a break?
Yeah, had a bit of a break, mostly just around Wellington. But yeah, it was good.
Good times, good times. Then you're straight into it on this Dirty River Rafting Tour, which is an annual event. Is this the second or third year?
The second year.
Yeah, so now you're touring around some of New Zealand's dirtiest rivers just to discover how dirty they are and sort of highlight some of the problems. And you started this week. Where have you been?
Yeah, well, we're looking at not just dirty rivers, but also rivers who are at risk, if you like. I was on the Waido River, which is the river that goes past Blenheim, which is the kind of northernmost braided river on the South Island. It's a very large braided river. And that's got a few issues facing it, but one of the big ones is that Trustpower are trying to drain 60% of the water from the river and put it through a series of canals for hydropower, which would have a devastating effect on the river. And so that's kind of the biggest threat to the Waido at the moment. But it also has other challenges in terms of agricultural intensification and also some of the forestry practices.
What if, because there's lots of trade-offs here. Obviously, we do need power, and hydropower is a clean source of energy, you've got to say. Is there any way to balance the needs for power and also the needs of the fish and the plants and everything else that needs the water there as well?
Well, as a country, we've got very large amounts of hydro already, and that's a result of damming and blocking some of our great rivers. The Waitaki, of course, is the most obvious one, but the Waikato River as well has a series of dams on it. So we already have a lot of hydropower, and I'd say, look, we've dammed enough of our wild rivers. We don't have a lot of the big wild rivers left. The Waido is one of them. Let's not dam any more wild rivers. Let's invest in the alternatives. And the alternatives are, in the first instance, energy efficiency. We could actually reduce our energy demand very significantly by actually being much more efficient about the way we use energy, which is really easy to do. It's a matter of just setting standards. It's actually a very, very simple thing to do. And then we've got a lot of other alternative generating options, particularly geothermal. We're putting in a lot of geothermal at the moment around the country. And then we've got a lot of wind going in. So, we've got plenty of different options. We don't need to kill another river.
But geothermal, how long term is that?
Oh, it's very long term. Geothermal's great base power. Basically, once you turn it on, you can't turn it off. So it runs all the time. And so it's a great match to other sources of power like wind, which is variable. And the existing hydro is also a good match to the wind because it means that when the wind drops off, you can just release water out of the existing hydro. We've got a huge hydro schemes. Why we'd want to destroy the last of our wild rivers. Because what are we going to do then? You think, okay, well, if we destroy the Waido River, that means that wild river's done, and we satisfy the increase in power for maybe a few months, and then we're going to have to do something else.
It's like roads, isn't it? Build the road, fill it up. Yeah,
well, because power demand's growing all the time. Yeah. So the Waido scheme would satisfy maybe 5 months of electricity growth. So sooner or later we're going to run out of rivers to destroy, and then we're going to have to sort our problems out without doing that. So why don't we do it now and save the last of those wild rivers?
Makes a lot of sense. What river are you most looking forward to visiting? For positive or negative reasons, I suppose.
Well, probably the one I've most enjoyed recently was the Mokihinui, which was on the top of the west coast of the South Island, which is a fantastic wild river with basically an entirely natural catchment. And that's the one that Meridian want to destroy with a 20-story high dam across it. So that was a wild rafting trip down that river. Yeah. Probably the one that in terms of the dirty side that I'm interested in looking at is the Oreti, which is flows south past Invercargill, and that's a river that previously was a really clean river. Yeah. And a lot of people have memories of swimming in that river, and because of dairy intensification is now highly contaminated. So I'm quite keen to have a look at that river to kind of compare how it was in the past.
It really is tragic that you're talking about all these South Island rivers when, we associate the South Island with all this great imagery of these wild rivers and them all being clean, being able to drink from them, that kind of thing, and the North Island with the really dirty side.
Yeah, well, times are changing.
Yeah.
And dairy intensification has really contaminated a lot of rivers now.
Of course, you could also widen the scope of the river rafting tour to maybe rivers and lakes. There was the news this week, I think it was at Lake Forsyth on the Banks Peninsula.
Yeah, the lakes are in real trouble. We've been trying to. So I did. We will do some lakes. So we did Ellesmere or Te Waihora on the last river tour, and that lake is at the bottom of the central Canterbury Plains. So the lake itself is just south of the Akaroa Peninsula, and it gets the Selwyn River coming into it, and it's kind of it's the drain from the central plains of Canterbury.
Yeah.
And the intensification through there has resulted in very large increases in nitrogen going into those lakes. And when you think about it, a lake really collects the pollution. So, while a river, continually flushes, lakes often have much slower flushing, so they tend to collect it.
And Forsyth is just around the corner from Ellesmere, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I haven't had a good look at Forsyth.
As far as I knew, when I lived in Canterbury, you would never want to go into Forsyth anyway because it's always been toxic. But now there's these extreme warnings about a toxic algae, or algal bloom that's in there. It's one of those lakes where you look at it on a satellite and it's like bright green or something. Pretty horrific.
That's what happened last time with Ellesmere as well. The issue is that when you get all the nitrogen in there and then it warms up, you get these algal blooms, and some of the algal blooms are really, really toxic. And will, actually damage your liver and stuff. Lake Horowhenua has had a similar problem, which is just north of Wellington, where it gets a toxic algal bloom each summer, which means that it's unsafe for people to go sailing on the lake. They have to cancel the sailing altogether.
And it's already unfortunate. You think about Lake Forsyth, it's on the tourist drive out to Akaroa. It's there's a lot of visitors who will pass by that lake and they might see these signs saying don't go in there and be thinking, this isn't the New Zealand that we were told about.
Yeah, that's right. It's clean, and it's one of the real threats to us is we built this economy on the clean and green brand with both tourism and primary production. And that's how we make our living in the world. So if we destroy the environment, one of the impacts, aside from all the other things, which are in some ways quite profound, which is, do we want to live in a contaminated country? But the other side of it is we'll destroy our export brand, which would be pretty tragic as well.
All right, Russell, thanks. We'll catch up with you next week on the river rafting tour.
All right, cheers very much.
Cheers. That is the co-leader of the Greens, Russell Norman. Here's the Drabdo Riffs.